Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's that Kevin Show. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. Obviously, the big conversation over the last couple of weeks has been, what about Trump's cabinet? There's lots of things to discuss because there's angles on different things. I was just at a gathering over the weekend in Arizona. A lot of people very concerned about whether or not the president can get his picks through. And I've seen some frustrated lawmakers get asked about this and just throw their hands up and say, if he wants to recess them, he can. And they said, basically, get ready for so-and-so to be so-and-so. Well, is that necessarily the case? Let's talk to Mike Berry, who's the Executive Director of Litigation for the America First Policy Institute, one of our favorite groups. Mike, it's good to see you again. Thanks for being here.
It's great to be with you.
First of all, before we get into the nuts and bolts, how does AFPI feel about the field of candidates that the president has taken the time to already let us know that he intends to appoint?
Well, I think we need to start with this. President Trump has campaigned on the promise that he is going to fight for us, the American people, and that when, as president, he's going to have an administration that's going to fight for us, the American people. He delivered a resounding victory on November 5th, winning the popular vote, a landslide in the Electoral College. We now have a majority in both chambers of Congress. So he's entering this administration with a total mandate, right, to do exactly what he campaigned on. So at the very least, he's earned the right to pick whomever he wants to be in his cabinet, in his administration. And we should get behind him and support that, because that's exactly why we elected him.
That tends to be kind of the no-brainer way that I think about this. We'll talk about Matt Gaetz in a second, because that's kind of the sticking point for some people. But I want to ask about the general tenor of the litigation around the election this year. Obviously, the Republicans and AFPI and the campaign were all on top of their game. And you guys, I know there were about 200 suits that got filed and litigated, at the close of early voting all the way through Election Day. And most of those got litigated immediately, and judgments were returned, and people had to count votes. And it was like the way elections are supposed to be. It was kind of cool. But what's going on in Pennsylvania, and have you guys intervened in that? Why are the Democrats openly saying that they're counting ballots that they've already been told by the state are unlawful?
Yeah, I mean, when are we going to start hearing the media calling the Democrats election deniers, right? I mean, the election has been called now. Kamala Harris conceded. President Trump is the president-elect who's going to be
in the Senate race.
And the Senate, they've already called it for David McCormick. He should be the United States Senator from Pennsylvania. So why are they denying the results of this election? And to your earlier point, Kevin, you're exactly right. Look, I've been saying for months, and our AFPI is not the campaign. We were not officially affiliated with the campaign, right? We're a nonprofit, a 501c3 organization. But we were fighting from the outside to ensure election integrity, to make sure that it's easy to vote in America, but it's hard to cheat.
Right.
And so from our vantage point, and especially as the head of litigation for AFPI, I said for months, we are not yet where we want to be or need to be when it comes to election integrity in this country, but we are light years ahead of where we've been in the past 4 or even past 8 years. And I think we saw that play out.
2020 was a disaster, primarily because COVID opened all these huge opportunities for people to just flood the market with ballots. They got standards reduced on how those ballots got considered valid or counted. And once they were out in circulation, there was almost nothing that could be done to pull them back. I liked the fact that the court said to several of the states, you can't send ballots to everybody. You have to send them only to the people that qualify for them and only the ones that deserve them. And I think that really made a big difference this go around. Do you think we are going to continue to see, because here's what happens generally. Republicans get all bothered about something and they fix it, and then they kind of fall back to sleep in a couple of election cycles. Do you think there's enough will in the GOP, in MAGA, in AFPI, in the other groups that have been watching this to stay on it? Because it's a go forward proposition. You have to be vigilant to keep the vote clean.
You're exactly right. It's going to take a whole of government approach. If we leave our elections up to litigators, to lawyers, that's not a good place for us to be in, right? We don't want elections to be decided by lawyers and judges in courtrooms. The elections should be decided by the American people. And one of the things that I think, and in the aftermath of this election, the 2024 election, just exactly as you said, that we can't take our foot off the gas. But it also, I don't think that it should be left to lawyers and judges to do that. I think we're going to need to see a lot of cleanup done in our state legislatures. That's who now has the ball. State legislatures need to look and see what was done well, what was effective, getting rid of drop boxes and mail-in ballots in large batches, and go back to the tried and true method of one person, one vote. Do it in person. Gosh, if you can show an ID, that'd be great, right? So we can verify who you are, that you're actually the person.
Well, what did it say that Kamala Harris only won in states where voter ID is not required? I mean, to me, that's a black mark against the Democrats saying there's something wrong there.
Exactly. So these state legislatures need to do a lot of the cleanup work. The areas where we saw most of the flare-ups.
Can U.S. citizens do that, though? Can just average people watching and listening to us say, I'm just going to go down to Trenton in New Jersey and just start, combing the voter rolls and helping them get people off of there, dead people and people that shouldn't be there? I mean, how much of this has to be the government's initiative, or can the citizens spearhead this?
I don't see why it couldn't be a public-private initiative, right? Some sort of, you have a lot of great nonprofit groups, AFPI and others, who have the wherewithal, the resources, right, and the kind of the institutional heft to be able to go in and say, look, I'll give you an example. In Ohio, the Secretary of State for Ohio, Frank LaRose, great American and patriot, who said, look, the federal government, obviously the Biden administration at the time, wasn't going to lift a finger to clean their voter rolls. But he said, as the Secretary of State for Ohio, I can do that. Just give me access to the data and I'll go through. And anyone who's not a verified U.S. citizen, I will remove them from the rolls. And he took the additional step of saying, I'm not going to do it en masse. I will go and actually do it on an individualized basis, right? To make sure that we are being very careful and very clean about the way we do this. And you saw the same thing in Virginia. That case went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, yes, the state absolutely has the right and the ability to do this.
There were states cleaning things up left and right. I mean, North Carolina knocked 750,000 voters off its rolls when the margin of the race in 2020 in North Carolina was only 198,000. That was huge. And I think, my point being that we have to do this every 2 years. We've got to be in there. We've got to be cleaning things up, because all they need is a pandemic or some excuse to do some weird, funky thing in the state legislature and say, oh, well, because of this, we got to have exceptions. Nope. We need to have clean voter rolls. He's Mike Barrett.
I'll be the first to say it. The biggest thing that we won on November 5th was opportunity. Yeah. Right. The opportunity to have Donald Trump as the 47th president, and the opportunity to have a mandate with the Senate and the House, both controlled by Republicans, to where we can actually accomplish something. We just have to seize that opportunity.
Agreed.
And what you're discussing is exactly one of the very first things we need to seize upon.
Stick around for more of That Kevin next.